Let's get started. My name is Prashant Shenoy. I have the pleasure of leading the VMware Cloud Foundation, or VCF division's product marketing, technical marketing, and the learning and certification side of the group there. And this session is around some of the best practices and use cases that we've seen our customers over the last 18 months as we've seen the journey of private cloud transformation with VCF. And what are some of the key takeaways and learnings that you can get based on some of your peers' journey with VCF? Before I deep dive into the session, one of the things that I want to highlight outside of this disclaimer that I'm not going to read to you, that may take me the entire session, is this is not a highly technical session. This is more focused on some of the architectural decisions, some of the business decisions and IT decisions your company and your organization needs to think through as you evolve from where you are today, which is maybe a vSphere with a VCF operations or automation or a few components of a private cloud to a full-on private cloud operating model. And some of the learnings from that, right? So just wanted to set the stage so that there are other sessions that goes into each of these and goes a lot more technical in depth in terms of how to architect and how to deploy and how to operate, all right? So one of the things that we've learned as we started on this journey is just to even set the stage and on what a private cloud means, right? So if I ask here the audience on what a private cloud means, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get at least 8 different answers, right? So just setting the stage, when we think about private cloud, it's more of an operating model for the IT to build, to manage, to operate your infrastructure and the workloads on top of it, right? And the key tenets of a private cloud operating model is, number one, it's completely software-defined, right? Software-defined compute, software-defined storage, software-defined networking, with a high degree of automation and operations built in. So you can manage your infrastructure at a fleet level rather than an individual component level, right? So that's number one. And if you look at any of the hyperscalers over the last 15 years, that's how they've built their infrastructure, right? They've taken pretty much off-the-shelf hardware, completely abstracted that, put a virtualization layer, and provided compute, storage, network services on top, and other application services on top, right? So that's the first focus. Number two, you have to make sure it is self-service for the developers, the DevOps, the platform engineers, and your line of business and tenants who will consume that infrastructure. Again, very similar to a public cloud model that's been there for the last 15 years. How can you provide that cloud-like experience with a self-service catalog of services for your tenants, for your developers, so they don't need to file an IT ticket, wait for weeks to get a Kubernetes pod or get a database service, etc. They can get it from your catalog of service or invoke an API or use a YAML to get that, right? So a self-service way, very consumption-focused, right? Number three, it truly needs to be a platform that is workload agnostic, right? Which means that you should be able to run your business-critical applications, your VDIs, your SQL servers, your VM-based applications, but also be able to run modern containerized applications, right? So, and especially with AI, over the last few years, more and more of cloud-native applications are built using container constructs, right? And Kubernetes orchestration. So can I use the same platform with the same set of interface and operating model to run both my VM and container platform, container workloads? Number four, and this is a pretty critical point, is the location agnostic nature of the operating model. Yes, we see a lot of our customers deploy this private cloud on-premise in a data center environment, but obviously in a co-location or as a managed service through a cloud service provider or a CSP or through hyperscalers as a managed service, right? So the idea is to have the same infrastructure, but have the flexibility from a location perspective to deploy and get managed by whoever it is that you want to do. And the fifth one is the security and governance aspect, right? It needs to be a highly resilient platform with a high level of cost predictability, which is what we've seen, as I'm going to talk in the next slide, around the nature of transparency in terms of how much infrastructure cost needs to happen for running a particular workload or for a particular tenant or for a particular part of your line of business that you're providing this service, right? So having that with security built in by design, highly available, highly resilient infrastructure. So those are the 5 key tenets of a private cloud operating model. Now, over the last year, as we talked to our customers, we worked with a third party and commissioned this private cloud outlook study, talking to around 1,800 of the IT decision makers across the globe, right? Americas, EMEA, and APJ, understanding where their private cloud transformation journey is going, what are some of the priorities, the use cases, the challenges that they're facing in general. And the big 3 takeaways were this. Number 1, there's a cloud reset happening in the market, and the private cloud is gaining momentum. And the major reason, and you may have heard Hawk talk about this last year as well as this year in the keynote, are the 3 C's, right? It's around the cost, it's around the compliance requirements and the security and privacy requirements, and it's around the complexity of the cloud environment. So that is making them take a fresh look at what is the right cloud operating model for my workload, and private cloud is making a huge resurgence because of the 3 C's, right? In fact, we are seeing pretty much majority of the customers that we surveyed are prioritizing building and running their new workloads, including their modern Gen AI and modern applications on private cloud as their top priority. And almost 70% of these customers were already planning or already repatriated some of their workloads from a public cloud to a private cloud environment, right? So clear indication that especially around the cost, the privacy, and modern applications, there is a clear thought process on, can private cloud provide me all of the cost efficiency, the security, the resiliency needed for these workloads? Number 2, the big tailwind around why private cloud is making a comeback is around security, it's around Gen AI, and it's around the cost predictability. If you look at the reports, public cloud for the first few years was a really good way of having a consumption-based, on-demand infrastructure as a service. But over the last few years, the cost aspect of public cloud has been a pretty strong challenge for a lot of our customers, where the unpredictability and the rising cost of the public cloud infrastructure has made them look back to say, hey, do I need to put all of my workloads in a public cloud, or should I be a cloud smart first kind of a company, right? So, and especially when Gen AI happened and the concerns around privacy of your data, the intellectual property, has made you rethink, should I put all of my workloads in the public cloud? And that's one of the key reasons why we see a lot of our customers come back to private cloud. And there's a huge wastage of your public cloud spend too, right? 94% of the customers reported wasting, and almost 25% of their budget were wasted, right? So that's a huge thing, especially in tightening IT budgets. And finally, it's not all rosy. There are certain challenges that enterprises are facing, especially around the way they have organized themselves, right? So the IT silos still exist. Your compute, your storage, your networking, your operations, your DevOps, your SRE, all of these folks in some cases work together, and there's a clear communication in terms of like, let's think cloud and platform first approach of managing and working as an IT organization. But in quite a few cases, the IT silos are some of the top challenges that we see for accelerating the private cloud adoption. Now, VCF was built to solve this. The vision and the mission of VCF was to be the best private cloud platform in the industry. And the idea behind that was to serve 2 key personas in IT. Number 1 is the cloud admin, right? How do we make sure the cloud admin can build, deploy, and operate a private cloud model, right? So the software-defined infrastructure aspect with that automation and operations that I talked about, so that's the first step. The second is, how do I make sure this infrastructure provides a consumption surface for the consumer of the infrastructure, which is the developers, the DevOps, the platform engineers, etc. Right? So for that, we had to think through a tenancy model, a self-service model, a cost predictability and transparency model, and the aspect that you can orchestrate all of these services and make it turnkey for your developers, right? So, and then on top of it, you will need a set of advanced services. If you want disaster or ransomware recovery, if you want advanced security and load balancing, if you want key set of data services or cyber compliance type of services, right? So wanting to, that this is an open ecosystem that you can bring in either Broadcom services or any third-party services to run on it seamlessly, right? So that was the genesis, and underneath it, you'll see that the location agnostic aspect of a private cloud that we talked about, right? On-prem, to the edge, to a managed service through a CSP or a hyperscaler, to a telco environment, right? It's the same infrastructure platform being built and deployed. Now, when we look at how the private cloud actually gets deployed, it's truly based on the IT initiatives that you have as an organization. And there are three big areas that we see most of the organizations look for private cloud, right? And it's around infrastructure modernization, application modernization, and security modernization, right? And there are different aspects within each of these that we've seen customers look through. For some, it generally starts off with like, hey, managing my infrastructure is getting extremely complex. Can I figure out a way to have a cloud operating model where I can do fleet level management, right? Upgrades, patching, certification management, identity and access control, done all across your data center from a fleet perspective, right? Takes the operational inefficiency, the challenges of patching away, managing your passwords away, right? So think fleet and platform first approach, right? For some, like including Broadcom IT, it was providing a self-service catalog to all of the 26 business divisions that Broadcom IT serves, right? So each one of us have this catalog of services that we can request when we are building an application or running an application, and IT doesn't get involved, but we have clear cost and capacity constraints that we can do a showback or a chargeback in certain cases, right? So where the tenants request a service and it gets delivered through this catalog of services, right? So that's where we see. And for some, it's building your Kubernetes and containerized applications and moving that from a different platform like OpenShift on to this platform, because it's the same platform, same infrastructure, same interface, same APIs for managing your VM and container applications, right? So as you're looking towards VCF, identify which one of these key initiatives are critical for you as an organization to deploy, and then what is the ROI and the cost efficiency that you expect to have as you deploy this, right? That makes the conversation as a lot simpler with your board, with your CIO, with your CFO, when it comes to the required budget or the required IT resources needed to drive this. And we've seen customers take different paths based on where their current environment is, right? Most of you, I feel, are in scenario 2, right? You have different components of a private cloud, mainly vSphere for your compute virtualization. In some cases, vSphere and vSAN, where you've done software-defined storage, took out some of the storage arrays to run some of your applications. Or in some cases, we've seen automation, right, through ARIA automation, right, and then NSX. So we see different aspects of it. And if you are on an 8 version of vSphere or vSAN, or a 4 of NSX, there's a very seamless transition and upgrade path to get to VCF 9. Not a migration, a seamless upgrade through capabilities like VCF import and installer that we built in as part of VCF 9, right? So we wanted to make sure, based on a lot of learnings, especially with NSX V2T, the vSAN OSA to ESA transitions, which were pretty painful. And in fact, even VCF 4 to 5 was a pretty painful, 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. So we took all of the learnings and wanted to make sure the transition is almost an upgrade process with minimal to no disruption to your existing environment. right? So these are kind of the scenarios through which we see our customers get to VCF 9. But even with that, it's very important to see what is generally the first step that a lot of our customers take. And it's always, in 90% of the cases, is from vSphere or vSphere plus NSX, get to VCF operations, right? Make that your operational console to do your day 0, day 1, day 2 operations, right? So that's the first step that we truly see a lot of our customers get to, right? And it's non-disruptive to your underlying architecture, right? Because it doesn't disrupt your data plane. It focuses on how do you manage your underlying infrastructure, how do you monitor, how do you get visibility, how do you do troubleshooting, how do you do upgrades, patching, etc. And then you can take one of those paths as I discussed, right? And generally we see the next path being platform consolidation, right? To run VMs and containers on the same platform. And you heard maybe in the general session, as Paul was talking about, we see a majority of our customers actually run OpenShift on vSphere for their container application. So why pay for 2 platforms when you can get the same VCF that can run natively your Kubernetes and container workloads, right? So that's a no-brainer to run your container workloads with VKS, the vSphere Kubernetes service that is built into VCF, right? With all of the IaaS services. So that's one of the paths that we see after the cloud operations. And then self-service, catalog of services to provide to your app and to your line of business teams, right? So this is how we see our customers go through the journey. And as they go through, it's very, very critical to see what are the operational benefits, what are the TCO benefits, what is the ROI that I can get so I can make a strong case to my C-suite to get this project going, right? And especially, we've seen tremendous cost benefits when you're converging and consolidating your platforms to run all of your workloads, right? VM and container. We have studies, including actual customers and third-party reports, where it provides 50 to 60% better TCO when you run your container workloads and your VM workloads on VCF compared to having 2 different platforms, right? So that's very critical as you go through this journey to see, hey, how can I map it to the operational efficiency, OpEx, CapEx savings that I can go and have a conversation. And Broadcom IT is drinking our own champagne kind of a thing, right? So Broadcom IT right now has VCF 5.2 running as our infrastructure platform. And they provide a self-service catalog of service across all of the business divisions that I mentioned. And the benefits are amazing. Like, I worked in the IT side for the last 25 years. I haven't seen some of the numbers that you see on the screen here in terms of utilization of close to 90% of the infrastructure, where we consolidated the infrastructure from 42 data centers, VMware plus Broadcom, into 7 total data centers for all of Broadcom, right? That's some major consolidation at a 90% utilization, right? Huge savings and huge operational efficiency gain. We also took out our storage arrays and used vSAN to run our storage data, right? And doing that, we got a 68% infrastructure consolidation right there, right? And and before VMware was part of Broadcom, they evaluated that, but IT was very resistant to take out their storage arrays. Once we became part of Broadcom, we worked with them, we set out to transition the workloads, and within 8 months, this was the effect, right? And all of this happened literally within 8 months, right? So that's a very fast-paced process to gain this benefit across the entire business entities. And finally, the self-service aspect makes the dev test environment setup time a breeze, right? 90% savings in terms of the time it takes to provision your developer environment for testing or production environments, right? So I wanted to highlight this, but I think the best way to get to know all of these and the journey is through the lens of a real organization who's gone through this process. So I'm pretty excited to invite on stage Tom and Frank here from ING and Integris Health to help explain their journey and their challenges as they went through this private cloud transition with VCF. So Tom and Frank. please get up here and let's have a conversation. All right, let me just move the chair. Yeah. All right, let's take center stage here. All right, thank you. All right, so Tom, let's start off with you. Explain a bit. Hey, we got the same kicks. That's pretty cool. All right, explain a bit about what your role is and a bit about Integris before we get into details.
Great, thank you. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Integris Health. We are a 20 hospital provider system in the state of Oklahoma. And we have about 1,800 licensed beds. We support 900 employed physicians and about 1,700 clinicians with about 17,000 accounts that we support across the entire organization.
Awesome. Frank, ING is a pretty well-known brand, but explain a bit more about ING and your role there.
Okay, my role is I'm the chief architect for all global infrastructure. So ING is present in the financial services industry, is offering services in retail banking, personal banking, private banking, business banking, wholesale banking, and doing service financial markets. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you were one of our beta customers for VCF9. So explain some of the experiences you've had through the beta and the learnings, and don't be shy.
That's a bit a tricky question because, yeah, we were part of the beta program, but we were extremely late. We were very close to, let's say, release candidate of VCF9. So observations from the beta version is really very limited, so I'm not going to talk about. One adjustment also on our current setup, we're using plenty of the VMware products. So we're using vSphere, vSAN, too small, let's say, limited size. NSX, full extent, by the way, all management products, so the ARIA, the vRealize, everything has been implemented with guidance of VMware, with validated designs. So we're pretty close to VCF, but we're not using VCF. And now we're really on our way to start implementing VCF9. So we're now preparing the full test environment. Okay. So probably within 1 year, you will have much better feedback than today.
Awesome, that's awesome. And one of the things, Tom, is, I mean, it's Integris, obviously it's life and death, right? So IT is pretty critical. You run a lot of business critical applications to provide for your physicians, for the clinicians, as well as for patient care. So what does your application environment look like, and what are some of the challenges or initiatives that you're thinking through as you went through this private cloud journey?
Yeah, so we are spread across 4 data centers today. We do have a hybrid cloud environment. Yeah. So number of SaaS apps, but 90% of what we support in our private cloud, we host within those 4 data centers. And I would say from that perspective, we've been looking to streamline different capabilities within the environment, like recovery, business continuity scenarios. So our goals with VCF have been to build out the environment to allow us to handle migrations, both from an operational and the business continuity perspective.
Yeah, so I think that's what the high availability, the resiliency is pretty critical, and security, right? So how do you think VCF will help you kind of help manage that security aspect, help you reduce the threat surface, help you faster recovery when and things happen?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing, obviously this is evolution, right? And yeah. I've heard a lot of good discussions this week on what that really means to a lot of organizations. For us, it is about taking a structured approach to how we're going to get there. Building this out, our goals have been, part of the data center journey is to get some of these migrations done. We don't want to manage data centers. We're a healthcare organization, right? So our goals are to get out of some of our current data centers, consolidate, which will also allow us in our evolution to afford to build this environment out app rationalize, which we've done a lot of that today, over 1,300 apps decommissioned in our environment today to rationalize down. But that's opening the doors. That's a security play for us, but it opens the doors for us. And the way we set VCF up is in a stretch cluster. So now we are moving workloads in a RAS model. So we replicated assisted vMotions. And so we're moving these workloads, and that journey is happening right now. And our goal is to also then, build further into that from a security point of view with cyber resiliency and taking advantage of VCF9 for that as well.
Awesome. And talking about applications and workloads, Frank, you've been one of the customers that I was giving as an example that is looking at VCF as your unified platform for running VM and container applications and workloads. So what's your journey been like, and what are some of the advantages that you expect to have or are seeing by this platform strategy of consolidating your workloads?
Just to say a few words on the current state we have. So we have today, ING started some data center consolidation years ago, and at the same time started building an ING private cloud called IPC, approximately 10 years ago. We are running on the IPC, on the VMware part, we are offering something like 50 services. On the VMware side, we have 30,000 VMs, 1,200 hosts, I think, using 12 tenants. We're in a multi-tenancy environment. Outside our consolidated data centers, we still have some local data centers. We still need to move to the global ones with another 17,000 VMs, so a pretty large estate. Okay. Some of the services are also were not yet running on virtualized platforms. So we were already working on designs to move, for example, our Cassandra estate, our object storage estate, our container estate also to the VMware platform. Was ongoing, but now with VCF9, I think it's a game changer, so probably more things will move to that platform, so it's really becoming a key element into our private clouds.
Awesome. And were these container workloads simply running on bare metal?
We were running on bare metal, but certainly we were already looking to move into the virtualized environment, and now with VCF9. But one thing I really like is the fact that now the hardware virtualization, the OS virtualization is really coming together. It's something I was really keen on for a long time. I think plenty of people for a long time on the infrastructure side, you've seen all types of virtualization. You probably all remember the NPARs, the VPARs, the LPARs, the containers, the zones, the domains, whatever, the C groups. And now finally, it's about all processing. Application processing, so they now really come close to each other. They have a purpose. So, containers are good, hardware virtualization is good, so it's not one is better than the other one, so they both have their position. One important element is that currently with VMs, there is still, let's say, developers also need to make a shift, because the VMs, they still have let's say, used to go, let's say, have access to the VMs. And we really need to start treating VMs like a container. So you really deploy. If something breaks, you need to redeploy. The same thing with restarting, because also on container side, normally containers are short-lived instances. If you talk to developers and you would really like to restart a container, they all start getting angry. The same with VMs. So we have VMs sometimes running for months, even sometimes years. So it's really, we need to have also bring some change in the mindset of developers.
That's awesome. And it's interesting in terms of the container journey. It looks like it's back to the future, where you had to explain the benefits of virtualization for these modern workloads and bare metal, right? So, which is what VMware has been doing for the last 25 years. But now, especially when it comes to AI, there's a push towards, hey, why do you need virtualization? You can just run it on bare metal, right? And there are two aspects of it. One is the performance aspect of these AI workloads, and hey, putting a virtualization stack is gonna cause performance degradation. And we've done several benchmark testing, third-party testing with MLPerf benchmarks, where we've seen 99% of the bare metal performance retained on VCF, right? With all of the virtualization benefits, things that we all take for granted, like vMotion, DRS, workload portability, all of this with the server consolidation that you're going to get. So those are kind of the things that we see a lot of our customers, once they think through this process and they see the benefits, then the migration happens a lot faster. So it's a very interesting use case that you're also going through. So NSX from a software-defined networking was another component of the private cloud stack that you have evaluated, you have deployed. So explain the journey and share some of the learnings for this audience when it comes to that.
Yeah, NSX is already implemented for a very long time, so well, don't think I can say a lot. So, but it's part of the full stack. So you need to, if go for virtualize, it's really storage virtualization, network virtualization, compute virtualization. So everything, they all belong together. So it's really key component of the solution. You cannot do without.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and this is the kind of the IT silo journey, right? So there are fiefdoms, like you have the box huggers in the networking space, the favorites that we all know. We have the storage, we have the same compute. So once you start building this platform and start thinking software-defined first, a lot of these IT teams need to work together, right? And that's a journey where some of the organizations do it a lot easier when there's clear communication and understanding. And in some cases, it's a lot harder when you have your silos. So that's one of the learnings that we've learned as we go through the process. And in fact, we've started working a lot closer with some of the underlying infrastructure vendors, right? Like we've done this with HPE, Dell for years, but also now with Cisco, with Arista, right? So how can we make sure NSX and VCF networking can seamlessly work and integrate with your underlying ACI fabric, right? While providing that 1 + 1 better than 2. So that has made the journey a lot simpler and easier for our customers. So we'll end with this. So we talked a lot about technology and the adoption of technology and the application environments, et cetera. But as we know, technology is 1/3 of the work, right? The people, the processes are pretty critical. So as you went through this journey, did you have to evaluate your team structure, make some changes to the processes and governance? Tom, why don't you start off, and then Frank?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so for us, governance has been like, it was something that needed to be revamped completely. When you're dealing with people's lives, governance and communication and structuring your teams to collaborate and do things in a way in an environment like this becomes the most important thing that we can do. Are we perfect? No. But we're motivated and really moving in the direction of ensuring that that collaboration between teams is happening really 24/7. We don't get to shut down, right? So governance is important, change management important, all of those things have to work, not just within IT. We have to be in communication with our clinicians and physicians 24/7. When something's happening on the network, they need to know. When something's happening with one of the systems that we're supporting, it could be the phone system, it could be infant security, it could be a monitoring system in our cardiovascular unit, it could be any of those things. And so, although the platform provides all of the capability, right, you still need to have that governance, and I would never underestimate communication and collaboration in this. And I've heard a lot of talk about that. When you bring so much power of a system into your hands, that can also be dangerous, right? So I would just say for us, that is at the forefront of what we're doing and how we're changing, and we're continuing to learn.
Awesome. Frank, from your perspective?
Yeah, organizations should follow really technology and processes, because really, as we already just mentioned, the virtualization, so hardware virtualization, always virtualization. In the past, there were two, let's say, dedicated teams, one for each of the choices. Now, if it's coming together, if it's becoming on the same platform, bring the teams together. Also the same on the consumer side, really look what's really happening. The way you offer services has an impact. So anyway, the organization should really follow what your service offers, the way you deal also inside the platform. So
That's awesome. So this is some really good takeaways from both your journey, different paths, similar outcomes that you're expecting. So really appreciate you sharing all of that with the audience here. Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks a lot, Frank. Appreciate it. You can just keep it here. So I'll end with this. As we discussed, the modern private cloud with VCF is the technology journey, but we are here to make sure we provide you the right tools, the incentives, the program, and the ecosystem of partners that are very critical to help you be successful in your journey to private cloud, right? So starting off with, if there's one thing that I would strongly encourage each and every one of you to do is work with your sales team or your partner organization to do a private cloud maturity assessment, right? Step one, before you do anything, have any kind of a renewal conversation, or if you've already had your renewal conversation, figure out where am I in this journey? What's the maturity model look like? How does it compare to my peers in my industry? And what is the next step I need to take, and what are the benefits I'm going to get as I take this, right? Because this is going to be a crawl, walk, run, fly journey. It's not going to be an easy button where you have vSphere today and tomorrow you're running a full stack VCF, right? So go through the maturity assessment. We have built this tool called PCMO, the Private Cloud Maturity and Optimization Tool, which is available for our sales team, for our partner team, and it's highly, highly customizable for you, right? So based on your IT environment, your IT staff, how you're organized, what your projects are, et cetera. And it shows you a very realistic thing of this is the benefit you're going to get or not get, right? And you can compare this with what are the other alternatives that you have, and you can customize it for you. I strongly encourage you to start off with that. Number two, once you have that maturity assessment and the framework and your priorities, have an adoption workshop. In fact, there are around 70 adoption workshops happening now here at Explore, where we are sitting with customers, we are truly whiteboarding, we are doing the assessment, we are having a customer adoption plan and a success plan, right? So at least we have the constructs of, hey, what is your architectural design pattern need to look like based on these use cases, and what are the next steps to get there, right? So work with our Broadcom services or our service delivery partners. For those of you that had conversations with Hawk or with Krish, our GM, we are doubling down on our services partners, right? So we don't want to be in the business of professional services. We truly want to enable this critical set of service delivery partners who you can work with, who have a better understanding of your IT environment than we do, and have an adoption plan. And in fact, we provided a lot of incentive for our customers as part of your TCV, the total contract value of VCF renewal, providing the service entitlement, almost up to 15%, that you can take and work with either professional services or with the service delivery partner to deploy, right? So that shows our commitment that we truly believe we need to make you successful. Otherwise, you're not going to get the value of VCF and you're not going to renew at all, right? So we want to make sure you have the full functionality deployed. So strongly encourage you to work with the professional services and the service delivery partners. And finally, we are transitioning the VI admins of yesterday to the cloud admins of today and tomorrow, right? So you have to have that reskilling, the retraining, the recertification of how do you think platform approach, how do you think a private cloud operating model. So all of our VCF certification, the VCP, and the VCAPs are now completely revamped with VCF 9. And the critical change that we have done is it's role-based. What is the role that you have in your organization? Are you an architect? Are you an implement? Are you support part? And then for each one, there's learning tracks where you can be a platform expert or you can be an advanced professional, networking, storage, automation, Kubernetes, etc. So completely revamped, and all customers get free on-demand training, and VCF customers get instructor-led training for free, right? So work with our education partners or reach out to your sales team to gain this information. And if you're part of VMUG, which I strongly encourage you to be, You also get free license for home use for 3 years, right? 128 cores of VCF, right? So you can get hands-on experience at your home. So we want to make sure that it's not just about the product. We have that services organization. You have the tools like the maturity model, as well as the certification for you to help reskill and retrain. So strongly encourage you to really dig deep into this. So thank you for taking the time today. Please take the survey, provide us feedback on what we can do better. And this particular event, although the slide isn't there, you get a raffle ticket, I think, when you entered. So please go to the expo show floor and you'll have a chance to win, I think, the Energizer Smart Pump. So thank you for taking the time. Have a great rest of Explore. Thank you.